Okay, folks, and we're back again. We're back again, back again, back again. So, as we all already know, unless you're sleeping on the rock, that there's an artist by the name of David, and David, spelled with a 4, as you can see, D4VD, right? That's the way he spells his stage name. His name is actually David Burke, right? And this has been going on in a news cycle now for several months, since September. This has been going on in a news cycle now since September. And it died down, but it has picked up steam again. And it's been reported now again in the news cycle. And because it's been reported again in the news cycle, I thought I would bring it to you. I didn't want to necessarily talk about it until some more development going on, because everybody has been talking about it. Everybody has been saying, hey, this is happening, and she was found dead in the trunk of the car, and David, they're cooperating. Then it was said that David was not cooperating. So it's actually been up and down in this news cycle. And I'm like, okay, usually when things are like up and down in the news cycle, we tend to all going like sharks. Fresh blood, we going like sharks, and we want to make sure that we're the one that gets out there first with the news. Right? And when we get out there first with the news, what tends to happen? Sometimes we have to retract statements. And because we have to retract statements, it kind of make things a bit rushy, a bit disingenuous. Sometimes you have to apologize. All kind of things happen in that process. So I kind of wanted to actually wait and see what was going down, what would happen with this young teenage girl, 14 years old, found dead in David's Tesla, and while David is on tour, and it doesn't appear like any charges would have been brought. However, new developments happen, and let's see what's coming out. All right, so let's bring this up and let's play this video.
Singer David is trending again as an executive at his record label was reportedly questioned by a grand jury. This is according to reporting from TMZ. Robert Morgenroth, the general manager of Mogul Vision, testified on Monday, reportedly. Celeste Rivas Hernandez's decomposing body was found in a Tesla owned by David. Was she killed? That's a burning question. TMZ is reporting that Mr. Morgenroth testified that, after testifying that the LA County Deputy DA, Beth Silverman, was, quote, very pushy on why I didn't call police. Morgenroth then responded, quote, I feel like I didn't have the responsibility to do that and just wanted to continue with the tour. Okay, the time frame here is unknown. At what time Mr. Morgenroth knew what, but we do know that singer David was touring when Celeste's body was discovered in that Tesla that was left abandoned. We know the tour was called off then. David was cooperating, now he's not cooperating, and he's believed to be a suspect. So could this be a case of co-conspirators? That's a question. Was this young woman killed? If she was killed, did one person do it? Did multiple people do it? Or did she accidentally die? She was a minor, So was there a cover-up because a minor accidentally died here? Did multiple people cover it up? Let's dig into this with our very seasoned investigator guest. We have with us retired NYPD Detective Tom Smith. He also is a co-host of the Gold Shields Show, and retired NYPD Deputy Inspector, the author of Once a Cop, and the host of Corey's Corner, Corey Pegues. Good morning to you both. Wonderful to have you on this case. Wow. As you know, this is so puzzling because it seems to me that a couple scenarios could have happened here. Corey, let me start with the one that's been in my mind for, since this occurred. Could this have been an accidental drug overdose, then covered up because this is a minor child? I would love to know your thoughts on that, if you think that drugs could have been at play in this case in some way.
Well, good morning to you and Tom. First of all, we have to leave everything on the table at this point because we don't know. Could that be part of the scenario? Yeah, obviously, everything is open at this time, and Tom is a detective who did numerous investigations. He'll tell you, we're leaving everything on the table at this time, but I'm still stuck on her being stuffed into this car for all of this time and no one knew about it. So we have to really start there. How did she get into this vehicle? If it was accidental or it was a homicide, someone has to pay.
Yeah, that's a great question. How do you go about getting an answer into how did she get in there? Detective Smith, let's hearken upon your many years of investigative work. Tell us, please, where you would start if you were assigned this case now.
Wow, that's a great question. And your opening statement, Julie, is it. That's why we never really heard what was going on with this case, because I don't think they know. And the more you go about it, the more evidence is going to come up with interviews, data breaches, with their phones and cell towers and all that. But where I would start was with the victim. And you start with the victim and going backwards and accounting for her whereabouts. You kind of know where the quote-unquote suspect was at this time, but it's important to find out what the victim was doing, where she was, who she was with, who she was gathering with, who she was talking to on social media. All of that is going to play into maybe a timeline of when this murder or death occurred.
This is fascinating, Tom, to hear you talk about this. So essentially a follow-up, do you kind of profile the victim, so to speak, like really try to learn everything you can about her?
Absolutely. Every single thing, where she ate, who she hung out with, who she called, who she was texting, everything, all of that, like the inspector said, all of that plays into building a case and building kind of an MO of what happened in this. But you have to start somewhere, and it usually starts with the victim and their whereabouts and their actions.
This is really helpful. Tom, thank you. We know that things were tense in that grand jury room, according to TMZ reporting. We know that it was apparently a very intense situation, and we know that at least one witness, according to TMZ's reporting, was uncooperative. So uncooperative, as a matter of fact, the idea was floated that she could possibly be arrested, or he could be, it's a she could be arrested. So prosecutors are considering a body attachment to ask the judge to force this female witness to testify for the grand jury. In Pennsylvania where I practice, it would be a material witness warrant, essentially is what it's called, where if somebody's unwilling to come in, you legally make them come in. The witness was a no-show, according to TMZ. It's unknown what this woman's connection is to the case. It's interesting to note that this woman is represented by the same attorney as that music label manager we were talking about, Robert Morgenroth. So that's David's manager, and he's represented by the same guy as this woman. All right. Let's talk about what other questions you both have with this investigation. Corey, I want to go back to you. What would you say is the biggest question you have right now after all these weeks have passed and we haven't heard a peep?
Well, the biggest question I have, even in the beginning of the case, is we need to get David into a room with detectives like Tom to drill down. Why was this body inside of his vehicle, and what did he know about the
Exactly.
individual, the deceased, because it was in his vehicle. And it was, I believe, a whole week after we found the body, he continued to talk. But we do know that there was a connection between the two. I believe that there were some pictures of them. We need to really drill down David to find out exactly what he knew, what was his connection with the young lady, and why didn't he leave the tour after finding out that a dead body is in his vehicle? That's
That's
baffling
crazy,
to
right?
me.
Right. Corey, you're exactly right. Tom, let's explore that more. So, yes, there's been a lot of speculation, as Corey noted, with pictures of the two of them that seem to be the two of them together, speculation that they may have been romantically involved. But we know she's a minor child. She's also a runaway. She repeatedly would run away from her home, and that became problematic, as we've learned at Court TV. So with David...
Yes, it's problematic for her to keep running away. She put herself in jeopardy of something happening to her, which it did. And by no stretch of the imagination should anything have happened to her. However, I don't know what was going on at home. We all don't know what was going on at home. And this is just heartbreaking for such a young child to be unalived. And right now there no one been held accountable, and this should have been more swift. However, I guess the law enforcement, they have to comb through all the evidence, ask 1,000,001 questions and maybe 1,000,000 more, and to get everything in detail, finite detail, right? And the important questions have to be asked, because a child been killed and stuffed in a vehicle, the trunk of a vehicle, and no one has yet to be held accountable. As a father, it's tough. It's tough, because when my daughter goes out, when she's, I want to go out, father, I want to go out and just have fun. It's scary. It's scary, right? But let's continue.
Tom, has the ship sailed now that he's not talking? Initially he was helpful. Would you talk to us about the delicate process of not, scaring away somebody that you may like for a death investigation?
Yeah, it's very, it's touch and go, and it all depends on their right to have counsel. That's where it all hinges. But the one thing I want to say is, I don't care as a detective where he was when the body was found. I want to know where he was when she was alive. Mm-hmm. That's the main part of this. Where he was when she was found, I don't care. And the inspector's right. The more questioning that is done on people of the know, or might be in that inner circle of where he was. Listen, every celebrity, everyone in the public eye has an inner circle of people that they trust, they depend on, and they go to when they're in trouble. That's what has to be broken. They have to get in that inner circle, maybe not the suspect, but who else is around him that may have information about this.
Oh, excellent points. Boy, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for the excellent insights and for your service. Detective Tom Smith, Deputy Inspector Corey Pegues, thank you kindly. We'll speak again soon.
All right. So with that being said, we can move on. Just to think that this is touching a lot of people, and of course it will touch a lot of people, because wow, David is 20 years old. She is 14, and we don't know how long they've been interacting or what kind of relationship, but based on what I've heard and the emotions that have erupted with people, that they've been seeing each other and some money has been passing through hands to keep things a hush hush. That's what I heard, allegedly. I don't know how truthful it is. However, it's what I heard. I'm just speaking on it, right? Will David be arrested? That's the question. So yesterday there was a grand jury, and in that grand jury, his manager was questioned, right? And TMZ have a report on it as to what went down, right? So accordingly, let me expand this a little bit more so you guys can see it. Let me bring this up, right? So accordingly to TMZ report, the president of David's touring company was grilled on Monday by deputy district attorney in front of a grand jury on why he didn't call the police. Yeah, why didn't you call the police? Was the money that important? This is a child's life that was snuffed out, and everybody's asking question, why didn't you call the police? But you guys decide, you guys think about it. Why didn't this man call the police? Right? First we heard that he was cooperating, David was cooperating, and then it was said that they weren't cooperating all along. Let's continue. So a grand jury is hearing evidence in the death of Chelsea Rivers. TMZ broke the story, LAPD robbery homicide division, in considering David a suspect in what it says in an apparent homicide. All right? So now there's the guy, his name is Robert Morgenroth. Robert Morgenroth. That's his name. All right? Let me close this out. That won't close out. I'm trying to close this ad out. All right, let's continue. And so let's do this. Let's go. Let's play the video from what TMZ has reported. Right.
This is your holiday reminder that shoes are a...
We don't want that. So let that goes forward. So let's hear what they have to say. Let's get there. All right. Let me try to close this out in the meantime. It's not listening to me. All right, so here we go.
There is a very interesting development. There is a very interesting development in the case involving singer David and Celeste Rivas, the woman who was found dead in his car. There is a grand jury that has been hearing evidence in this case, and it is clear to us, based on what we know with the LAPD and now what we know with the LA County DA, that David is in the crosshairs as a suspect. Something happened outside the grand jury room in the hallway that seems to rope in
really focus on
music executives who may or may not know something connected to all of this.
In fact, the person who spent most of the day on Monday testifying before the grand jury is a guy who is the head of David's record label and the tour company that operates his most recent tour. His name is Robert Morgenroth Jr. And he, like I said, spent most of the day on Monday before the grand jury. When he walked out of the grand jury, and this is what you're referring to, there was a conversation he had with his lawyer in a hallway.
Now let's explain this. This is a kind of wide hallway outside of the criminal courts building, and the hallway echoes. And there were about a half dozen people around, and he was talking loud enough that people heard it.
Right.
And what was said is really, really interesting.
Because he said that, said to his attorney, they were grilling me.
This is the prosecutor. Her name is Beth Silverman. She is a very seasoned prosecutor, very aggressive prosecutor.
And what he said to his lawyer in this hallway, again, loud enough for other people to hear, he said, she was grilling me about why I didn't call cops.
Why I didn't call cops. That is really, really interesting. Now, his response is also interesting.
Right. He said, I said, I feel like I didn't have the responsibility to do that and just wanted to continue with the tour.
So let's kind of unpack this. Number one, we can't say what he was supposed to call cops about according to the DA. This could have to do with anything except for one thing. It seems that the DA believed that there was some criminal conduct for which cops should be called.
Right.
That seems
Why else
obvious.
would the DA be asking that?
And what the case is about is the LAPD and apparently the DA believe that David may have been the culprit here in the death of Celeste Rivas.
We know that they are operating as calling him a suspect in her death.
That's right. And his answer to me.
Who didn't think, anyone out there, any one of the listeners right now out there, who didn't think that David had something to do with Celeste unaliving? Come on. Anyone would obviously think of it. His car, the trunk, 14-year-old girl, dead. And you and I logically would say he had something to do with it. Let's continue.
He sounds like someone who was either told some information or knew some information, formed a judgment that he wanted to continue with the tour rather than call police. It doesn't sound as if he was maybe sort of not in the know. It sounds as if he knew something.
Well, that's
either
what
told him,
so we
and that's why the DA was pushing on this
The other
issue.
thing we don't know here is exactly what tour he's referring to. But we do know that when the body was found in David's car, he was on tour, in the middle of a tour that even after the news of the body being found in his car, continued that tour for another week or so.
Now, to be fair, this gentleman was with David since 2022, and there have been 3 tours. So it could be a prior tour, except the prior tour doesn't really make sense because Celeste wasn't an issue until this tour.
What criminal activity was going on?
So what criminal activity was going on? But you connect the dots there.
And this dovetails with our understanding that he is considered a suspect. David is considered a suspect, and this now dovetails with the prosecutor grilling.
You're in front of a grand jury and you're asking
you're trying to get charges.
his tour manager about, obviously.
So it's a big no-no to be overheard. I'm not sure it was intentional or ever. That hallway does echo. We've been in it many, many times, but it is taken very seriously when the grand jury proceedings are publicly available in this way.
And it just is interesting. It's like, why didn't you tell police? It means he said something or acknowledged something that triggered the DA to say that if you knew what you just said, why didn't you call the police? And he's saying, not my responsibility. My job is to make sure the tour goes on. That's really interesting.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Webb, New York attorney. And my take on this is that it's really out of context and hard to say what exactly he saw or might have known. But it definitely calls into question what happened on that tour and whether other people were.
I think this guy's a real donkey to not call the police when obvious information is out there and everybody is questioning, and you might have heard something or suspicious of something and you didn't say anything. You might be charged in this case as a co-conspirator. This guy might be. Let's continue.
Had some knowledge of what was going on and maybe would also be implicated after this grand jury hearing.
Well, I don't know that they're implicating. I can just say that he said something that the DA believed should require him to call the cops. I'm not saying he had a legal obligation, but that's clearly how this all unfolded.
It feels like who knew what and when did they know it?
Right.
Exactly. All right. So, as you can see, and you can understand that this is just crazy, right? To be that on what's the word I'm looking for? Incensed that you wouldn't think that you should get some investigation going on. It's not a logical person, a person that cares about a human's life, right? Would actually want to find out what happened, right? Anybody would want to find out what happened. I would. Somebody, I hear something and I'm curious what's going on. I would, right? But he didn't. Let's pull up the next asset here, and we can hear some details from some individuals as to what for going further along with the case. Right? So let's do this. Let's play this video. Okay, give me a second. Let me.
Investigative grand jury is hearing evidence in the case. Mark, you've been all over the David story from the very beginning. Explain why an investigative grand jury is hearing evidence in the case and what that means.
So for those who aren't following us closely or my other podcasts closely, I have said for months now that it's obvious to any sentient being who practices law in Los Angeles County that the LAPD and the coroner are at odds. And usually it's a very symbiotic relationship, as you two know, between the coroner, the pathologist, and usually the chief coroner and law enforcement. This has had all the earmarks from day one of them at loggerheads. And that has been confirmed in the dueling press releases that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, not the least of which is then what happened was the LADA at the behest, or actually I think it was
go back a little bit.
LADA.
Listen this part, guys. Listen this
seen
part.
In the last couple of weeks, not the least of which is then what happened was the LADA basically at the behest, or actually I think it was the LAPD, went in, first they went in to try to get an order to shut down the ME from me talking or releasing anything. They were rebuffed, if you believe what's being reported. Then they went in again and they got a judge to shut it down, shut them down. The ME issued a statement saying, I'm calling BS on this. We should be transparent. And so the reaction was to then go to the grand jury. For those who are not practitioners in California, and specifically LA County, unlike other jurisdictions, it's very rare to have the grand jury do this. And they usually do it in very high profile or secretive cases. That's exactly what's going on here. And it's highly, highly unusual. I don't know what's going on at the LAPD, but I will tell you that this is not business as usual.
Let me read the quote from the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office. This is Dr. Ode Ukpo, if I'm pronouncing that right. And his response to this publicly, quote, "The practice of security holds is virtually unheard of in other counties and has not been proven to improve outcomes in the legal system. We are dedicated to serving our community with full transparency. However, the law precludes us from doing so while the court order remains in this case." Phil, You've done a lot of murders. You ever had a case where a coroner?
Be careful how you couch that.
Yeah, sorry. You have been involved in the legal system with many murders not committed by you. How's that?
Yeah.
You ever heard of such a thing? I mean, well, unproven, as they say.
Yes.
So I've been trying. I don't have the inside perspective, obviously, out in LA like you guys do. And Mark, your insight is it's really fascinating to hear this, because I can't really tell. Like, does the medical examiner, the coroner, is that individual saying, I believe this was a homicide, and the police are investigating it not as a homicide, or is it the other way around? I can't figure out what side of the fence these warring parties are seem to be at. The thing is, with this investigative grand jury, it's rare here in Georgia, where I practice as well. It's not unheard of, but it is rare. Normally, the law enforcement agency investigating a case can do all the investigation, work up their case, present it to a district attorney, who then takes the case to a normal grand jury and secure an indictment. They don't need to do this, and I'm curious as to why they're doing it. The only thing that really pops into my mind, and this is because I'm a cynic. I'm always cynical about these things. A prosecutor can use a grand jury for their own purposes, right? They can take advantage of the secrecy in a grand jury. If let's say a prosecutor wants to dump a case where the public might be there might be a public outcry for criminal charges, they can use a grand jury and steer it in some direction. And if the grand jury says, look, we're not going to recommend charges, then the prosecutor throws their hand up and says, well, the grand jury said there wasn't a crime, so it's not on us. Which the truth of the matter is, the grand jury is going to do whatever the prosecutor wants, whether it's a regular grand jury or an investigative grand jury. And I don't really have a whole lot more to add, because it's just secret, and I don't understand why they need to do this.
I tell you, Phil, we've got some breadcrumbs, and this is what got me initially kind of interested in what was happening here. The breadcrumbs are, first, the LAPD had shut down. I mean, I have had a long relationship, and I say that with a smile on my face, with the LAPD, but they normally leak like a sieve. In this case, they were not leaking, and they were incredibly tight-lipped initially. Then there was some reporting that was done, and they came out and did something I've never seen them do in recent memory, where they basically were saying something to the effect of, we're not even sure a crime was committed, which was kind of inferred that, or you could take from that, okay, maybe the working hypothesis was she OD'd, this poor girl OD'd on some drug, and then the body was disposed of. Well, that's still arguably a crime. So we're saying what that statement, how that statement advanced things. Then there was the kind of the leaks, so to speak, that there was a trip to Santa Barbara. That has been bandied back and forth. First it was denied, then it was confirmed, now it's clearly been confirmed. And when I say the trip to Santa Barbara, all the internet sleuths will tell you where was LAPD all along, because there were posts, and if you take a look at the posts related to two of the people who are under suspicion, those are geofenced to rural areas of Santa Barbara. The internet had already solved that. Then you come to this last piece, which was the body either decapitated or frozen? And LAPD, that blew their minds, apparently. And there was reporting that was done that clearly the body was decapitated and that the body was frozen. And they now have said, the ME has said, that the fingers were waterlogged, which is consistent with having been frozen. That's right around the time LAPD was trying to shut all of this down. You, I think, hit on it, Phil, and I'm interested in what Matt's thing is. I think there is a disconnect between whether the ME, in my belief, is saying this is a homicide already, and LAPD is saying we're not so sure. I think that's where this disconnect is, and that's driving LAPD to the point of distraction, which is why they ran in and got Judge Richmond to.
Wow. Just to think about it, right? Because I heard that there was someone else that they suspect that assisted David in, allegedly now, We don't know. This is all speculative. But there was someone else that was involved in unaliving. Involved in unaliving Celeste. And that there supposedly a gay relationship going on, and that the relationship was with a, I don't know YouTube policies on the word, but TRAN, right? And I'll just leave it again, TRAN, so you know you can complete the rest. And that there was some jealousy that occurred, and because of the jealousy, that's why Celeste lost her life. But when you think in terms of them decapitating her, dismembering her, that's a level of wickedness. That's a level of diabolical, insidious wickedness. What did Celeste do for her to deserve this? My heart aches. My heart aches. And my daughter, she is so passionate about this. Right? I wish she was here with me doing this. We were supposed to have a conversation, but something came up and we weren't able to. But guys, just think. Fathers, you have a daughter or a child and something like this happened to her or him. Mothers, brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, grandparents. This is traumatically hurtful. Yeah. This is a level of wickedness. It's a level of wickedness. Let's continue.
To shut down any kind of public transparency on this.
Mark, I worked a lot of murders, guys, with a lot of, I did a lot of grand jury work and, exclusively in the homicide unit for 17 years. I've never even heard of a coroner trying to comment during the pendency of an investigation. Our coroner in Orange County, Mark, as you know, you've probably dealt with Dr. Hugelon before. He understood his lane, he understood his role, and he never stepped out of line. This is really interesting, and it'll be interesting to see.
Would it be rude for me to say that as a former homicide prosecutor where you and I did battle for many years, that the reason that he did that is because he was subservient to the Orange County DA's office and he knew what his lane was,
yes,
which was to be your handmaid.
That makes sense.
And to do your bidding as the DA, because that's certainly...
Let's go back again. I want to hear that again.
A coroner trying to comment during the pendency of an investigation. Our coroner in Orange County, Mark, as you know, you've probably dealt with Dr. Hugelon before. He understood his lane, he understood his role, and he never stepped out of line. This is really interesting, and it'll be interesting to see.
Would it be rude for me to say that as a former homicide prosecutor where you and I did battle for many years, that the reason that he did that is because he was subservient to the Orange County DA's office and he knew what his lane was, which was to be your handmaiden and to do your bidding as the DA, because that's certainly the cross-examinations that I normally would engage in with the OC coroner's office.
So first of all, he's still there. He's awesome. I don't know if you've ever crossed him. The guy's phenomenal. But some people might be tempted to believe that if they didn't see my colleague, Mike Murray, who's now a Superior Court judge, Mike wanted time of death estimations by Dr. Hugelan. And as you know, Mark, that's a gift to almost every defense lawyer. It's never right. Time of death, like we see on Quincy or on TV, is never accurate.
It's exactly. It's an art, not a science.
Dr. Hugelan on his own was like, this is bullshit, guys. This never works. You're asking, these are the parameters are so broad. Everybody sees it on TV, but it's not real. I don't want to do it anymore. And he went round and round, I think correctly. No offense to my buddy Mike, but Dr. Hugelan was exactly right on this one. So if you didn't see the battles going on behind the scenes where that man was standing up for what was right and what he believed, people could be tempted to believe.
I think you're right, Matt, but I think the genesis, I have a different genesis to that. I think it was after he had been subjected and his office had been subjected to a couple of withering cross-examinations that I actually witnessed in a courtroom on the time of death on a couple of very high-profile cases down in your county. And then he said, I'm not going there anymore. I'm not defending this. This is nonsense.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting issue. Mark, you've been all over the David story from the very beginning.
Yeah, guys, just understand that we are in some times when you have the prosecutors and the district attorney in cahoots. When you have the prosecutor and the district attorney in cahoots, it makes you wonder why you are going to get a fair case. Because when a district attorney decides that they're not going to prosecute someone, guess what? The case will just be brushed under the rug. And that you always have to understand that you're at the whims of the district attorney, because the district attorney ultimately kind of control the grand jury, because if they work hand in hand and you're an innocent person, you can forget having a fair day in court. A fair day in court is non-existence, and that's what's happening. This David case, we don't know what the outcome is going to be like. All I can say is that we just have to wait and see. We just have to wait and see and hope for some kind of clarity and someone being held accountable, right? But I do believe, I could be wrong, speculative, that the head of the label that David is signed to might be charged as a co-conspirator, because after the fact, of course, and that might cancel both their careers. If David is guilty, he will pay his penance. If he's not guilty, then he will be found not guilty. Some are saying that it might have been a setup. We don't know. But a young, innocent, haven't even experienced the world, life, a young, innocent girl that haven't even experienced the world, her life was snuffed out. That's the full thought. And because of that, we are left wondering and asking the question, why did this happen? Why did this happen? It shouldn't have happened. And on that note, guys, wow. It's I was actually a bit upset in doing this. I'm going to end it here. Thank you for watching. One love and respects. And remember to always question everything, because if you don't, you may fall for anything. Think and say. Have a good day.